prevent your pets encountering these hazards, how to recognize signs that they're in trouble, and what you need to do, what you can do yourself, and when you need to seek help.
So I like to ask the question, what concerns you in the summer? So I know most of us know about foxtails, but not necessarily everything we need to know. We know that rattlesnakes are a concern. We know about heat stroke, but we're going to talk specifically about that, and pavement and concrete temperatures, making sure your ID is current. We're going to talk about vector-borne diseases. So those are all of those little fun insect creatures like mosquitoes, fleas, ticks, all that kind of stuff. Issues that we might have with bee stings. But what concerns you that's not in that you want to make sure we cover?
Mark, skunks spray.
Skunk
There
spray.
was a few people last week that had called me and their dogs were skunked. Two different pet owners and that. What to use
Sure.
in terms of
Absolutely. So that's one that I'm happy to do. I don't know I always have to look up the recipe.
Okay.
But I'll do that and we'll get it, because it's super easy. There's just a couple of small rules, because we use hydrogen peroxide, so we don't shake the bottle or it explodes. So, and then the other thing is having sterile water flush for their eyes, because if they actually get sprayed in the face, the spray is an oil based. So think of being misted with an oil, so like you wipe it and it just rubs it in. So I'll get you that. It's a real easy recipe. It's usually stuff we've got at home. We suggest Dawn dish detergent with it, because Dawn actually does what it says. It cuts through the grease. They use it for oil spills with wildlife and that kind of stuff.
Those two solutions were brought up and they were addressed in that.
So the other
They're
thing
territorial too.
Yeah. The other thing to note about encounters with skunks is that skunks are one of the major carriers of rabies in our area. You hear about raccoons a lot, but that's more on the East Coast, so skunks carry rabies, and when they're angry, skunks spit a lot, and their saliva is just filled with rabies if they happen to have rabies. So especially if your dog encounters a skunk during the day, that's abnormal, because skunks are nocturnal animals. So encountering a skunk during the day means something's abnormal with that skunk. Always think rabies. So keeping your dog's rabies vaccines up to date is very important. And not tangling with the skunk yourself is also important.
And if
your rabies vaccine is probably not up to date.
mine is. If they have an encounter where you know that it's not they walked up, got sprayed, and that's all that happened, then you do want to have your animals vaccine boosted.
Luckily, they were our friends, owners.
Great. Okay. So one of the number one things that people don't think about, and I do for summertime safety, we just had the 4th of July. This is the number one holiday when animals go missing, as well as heat stroke. So in the summertime, we're out, we're doing things, people are more active, people are in and out of gates, they're gardening, they're doing all this kind of stuff. Make sure your dogs are wearing ID and make sure that it's current. It's really, really important. That's one of the number one summertime safety tips. We get kind of caught up in some of the other stuff, and it's just a basic. So make sure that ID is current. If you're traveling with your dogs, you need to make sure that you have their information, including their rabies vaccine information, so that if anything happens, if they have an encounter with another dog, you're able to give that information. Let's talk a little bit about heat stroke. So heat stroke is a very serious concern. We lose a lot of animals to it every year in the veterinary community. It is also a concern for people, and I have had heat stroke more than 4 times. If you've ever had it once, and the same thing goes for an animal, you are more susceptible to having it. Something inside your temperature sensor broke. So you are no longer able to regulate your temperature as well, and you are significantly more susceptible. So be aware, if you have an animal who's had heat injury, they are more likely to have heat injury in the future. So how do dogs cool themselves? Does anybody know?
Panting.
Panting, right? So they do sweat a little bit through their little feet paws, through their pads. You'll see that in obedience classes and other places where they're a little nervous and they move and there's little wet prints. But that's not enough. They just can't get the heat out. So they pant. And that panting is how they cool themselves. You'll also see that they'll go into shade. They'll go in. A lot of them will go into water to kind of cool their body temperature. And we have some recommendations for caution with water a little bit later. So how do they get overheated? So we've all seen Dr. Ernie Ward on TV, right? Sitting in the car. So I double checked because I wasn't totally positive on temperature. So I looked it up and wrote it down for you guys. So when it's 70 degrees outside, a car that's sitting in direct sun, reaches 104 in 30 minutes and 113 in 1 hour. If it's between 80 and 100 degrees, within 15 minutes, it can reach 130 to 172 degrees.
Wow.
That's enough to cook your chicken so that you can eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the inside of a car. So the same thing goes with garages, rooms without air conditioning, and that's something in Sacramento. A lot of us have older houses that may not have air conditioning. So something to think about how to keep them cool. The cement, at 6 a.m. when it is 80 degrees outside, the cement temperature is 84 degrees. Asphalt is already at 94 degrees. By noon, when it's 94 degrees, cement in the shade is 106. In the sun, it's 135. And the blacktop is 146 degrees. The issue that we run into here that we don't always think about is people think, oh, I'll either walk my dogs early in the morning or I'll walk them late at night. At 10 o'clock, if it was in the 90s, which it is often here, if the air temperature is 80 degrees at 10 o'clock, the cement is 98 and the blacktop is still 106. It takes a really long time for that to cool off. Another issue that we have with heat that we need to be really careful with, and I think for those of us who have Facebook, we probably all saw this disturbing video that we didn't want to see. Water in a hose in the sun can reach 190 degrees. That's instant burns. So that's something that we need to be careful of, especially when we're wanting to cool them off, when we're out there gardening and we have dogs who like to play in the water. We're not going to turn the hose on and spray it. And even if you first turn the hose on and the water is cool, depending upon how your piping goes, you need to wait until that water is cooled down before you spray it on anything, put it in the kids' pool for the dogs, whatever it might be.
Can I back up and interject something? So with the pavement, frequently people have this thing is also on Facebook, right? Dr. Facebook knows everything. Where they say, to check the pavement to see if it's safe to walk your dog, put the back of your hand down because the back of your hand is more sensitive than the front. First of all, it's not more sensitive than the front. The front of your hand is more sensitive than the back because you use that. So we've evolved more sensitivity there anyway. So second of all, it's not okay to walk your dog on pavement that you can hold your hand on for 10 seconds without screaming that it hurts, because we're not just concerned about burns, we're concerned about the way that the radiant heat heats up your dog. So if the pads are one of the places dogs sweat, they're one of the places where dogs will, say, put more circulation to try to cool off. So if they're constantly putting those feet on something that's warmer than they are, and they're putting more circulation there, they're actually picking up more heat. So even if they don't burn their feet, they're picking up more heat and bringing it into their body, so they're warming themselves up. It's like putting your hands in front of a fire to warm yourself up, right? Or getting yourself in warm water. So when it can still be warm, not painfully warm, but it'll still add to your dog's heat and add to their own body temperature rising. So if they're taking a walk, they're exercising, they're getting heat from the concrete, it's fairly warm outside, that's enough for them to get heat stroke. They can still get heat stroke at 10 o'clock at night. Yeah.
Question, if I have, cause I have like Wheaties, but they're like the breathable ones. If I walk my old guy at night, but I put those on to at least protect, would I still be concerned, since that is how they sweat, of, I guess I get concerned about not being able to sweat and pull himself down with those boots,
Yeah.
kind of trapping in heat.
Yeah, so the heat will still transfer through them in, but they're not gonna release as much heat
Right.
through that, so yeah, I don't think of them as helping as much.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
What about walking on grass?
So grass is generally cooler than the asphalt or the concrete, so grass is good, but dry grass, even green grass can get very hot, and dry grass can be very hot. And the dry dirt will retain a lot of heat also. So generally, some of us have picked up from the shelters that behavioral enrichment and exercise is paramount, it's the most important thing, but actually keeping your dog from dying of heat stroke is more important. So there will be days here in the summer where you're gonna have to entertain your dogs inside, where you're just not gonna take walks. And that's okay, it's better.
Right.
Some intellectual stimulation, some play in an air-conditioned house, some light activity outside with the hose if they're the kind of dog that likes playing with the water. But one of my bullies, you guys all know Lexi, right? Lexi, my bully, she loves to play with the water, and even when she's playing with the hose, she can get somewhat overheated just from that level of exertion.
The another one is artificial grass. That is
Sizzling hot.
so hot. Another thing that we see during the summertime, we don't condone it any time of the year,